Happy Friday. I am a 55-year-old American whose parents immigrated from Portugal. They met in Africa and then started a young immigrant family in a place that provided for them opportunity. When I was a young boy, my mother lost 2 fingers in a factory accident. And when you're an immigrant, all you have is your back, your hands, the sweat that you can bring to bear to build a life. My father was injured in a forklift accident. And all of a sudden, those hopes and dreams that had driven a young couple to begin a new life were jarred. And then all of a sudden, my aunts, my uncles, my neighbors, the church, the neighbors, and I remember this vividly as a young boy, when my mother and father fell, the community lifted me up. So the magic for me 45 years later, when I walk through the gates of the West Wing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to serve the American people and work for the President of the United States, Barack Obama. The son of 2 Portuguese immigrants who had seen so much was there in the halls of power. And I had the most amazing job in the world, because my job wasn't to stay in Washington, my job was to leave, which I did happily, every 2 weeks. And my mission was fairly simple. Although my wife kind of bristled when I would tell her the itinerary. I'd say, on Tuesday night, I'm in a bar. On Monday morning, Wednesday morning, I'm in a diner, in a restaurant, in a cab, behind a 2-way mirror in a focus group. My job was to listen. My job was to put aside whatever preconceived notions that I had. My job in those moments was not to think. My job in that moment was not to construct stories, to disagree, to contextualize. My job was to listen. My job was to look at the body language, at the expressions, at the tone of voice, at the way people interacted with one another. That is a language. That is an expression. And once I took that all in, my job was then to go back to Washington, walk into the West Wing, sit down with my colleagues and tell them without editorial judgment or preconceived notions what I saw and what I heard. And then I would march myself into the Oval Office and sit across the desk from the President of the United States of America, who would invariably greet me the following way. Hey, how's it going? It's pretty good, right? My daughter says it's really creepy. She's right. And then he would take out a yellow notebook. And for half an hour and 45 minutes, I would tell him. And he would tell me, I don't want to hear the happy talk. I don't want to hear all the good things. I don't want to hear the things where folks already agree with me. David, I need to hear the uncomfortable. I need to hear the disagreement. I need to hear the bad, the ugly, and the worse. I need to hear it all. And it comes from the wisdom of, for me, the greatest president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, who said, with public sentiment, you can do all. Without it, you can do nothing. And you can't gauge that without listening. And importantly, you can't do that by simply being in a universe or a group of people that continues to validate and reinforce the things you already believe and want to hear. Certainty sometimes is a failure. It diminishes our ability to understand nuance, complexity, and tension. On those days, I would go to him with a gift that was the snapshot of sentiment in a moment in time of the people. There are representatives here from 90 countries. This isn't just an American story. This is a global story. It is a human story. So what I want to do for the next few minutes, because my work has continued over the past 10 years, and I want to tell you about what I hear from people who voted for Barack Obama and Donald Trump. I want you to listen to this as much as you possibly can, without judgment and with a generosity of spirit that we would afford to another human being. Let me begin with a woman in Ohio, in the Midwest of the United States, who was in the middle of a discussion and someone said the word privilege to her. And all of a sudden, the reaction that she had was, I don't know what the hell you're talking about when you say privilege, but my son died of an opioid addiction. The community that I grew up in has been hollowed. Don't tell me I'm privileged. Maybe some other people are, but I'm not. You don't see me. Let me tell you about the young man in Nevada, where a discussion about online engagement came up in misinformation. His reaction was, oh, really? Misinformation? Here's what I hear when people say misinformation. You're not smart enough. I know what's true. I know what websites you can go to and not go to. Apparently, I can't handle it. Let me tell you about the evangelical Christian mom in the Deep South who refuses to send her daughter to the public schools because she says that they are the enemy to the values that she is trying to instill in her child. And she feels attacked in her Christian faith. Let me tell you about the worker on an oil rig in the United States who's worried he's going to lose his job because of what he calls the climate agenda. And then he says, to make matters worse, they're telling me to buy a car I can't even afford. Let me tell you about the young man in the south side of Chicago who's talking about homelessness in the Black community and the lack of jobs. But yet in his mind, a migrant can come into the United States on a Monday and have a hotel and a job on Tuesday. Raw. And finally, let me tell you about Pete from Des Moines, not the real name, but the real place in Iowa, who was explaining why he kept on voting for different people. He said, I had to tell my child, my son, that I can't pay for him to go to the school that I wanted to send him to. He'll be fine, I won't. Because after a lifetime of working hard, my pension is gone, my health care isn't worth what it used to be, I'm falling further and further behind, and I'm gonna keep on firing people until my life gets better. These are the voices that I hear. We can disagree with them on the substance. We can disagree with them on the choices that they are making. But it's never been my experience that you persuade someone by telling them that they are wrong, or that they are an other, or a racist, or a fascist. They may be those things, some of them. But in that moment of listening, of trying to understand, Hear people. Because persuasion is the heart of democracy. And the heart of persuasion is listening. Let me conclude with the way that I saw President Obama do this in a way that was extraordinary. It was 2016, and black men in July of 2016, over a series of weeks, were being killed by police officers in the United States. There then was a protest in Dallas, Texas, where people were protesting these police shootings. At that protest, 5 Dallas police officers were killed by a sniper. The president went to Dallas. The tensions in the country were red hot. Dead cops, dead young men, black men. What do? He took all of his listening and all of his leadership, and he essentially said the following. To my friends in law enforcement, please understand that when a black mother or father hears the phone ring at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know what that is. And to my brothers and sisters in the community, please know that when the spouse of a police officer hears the phone ring at 2 o'clock in the morning, they know what that is. In that moment of intensity, where emotions were running rampant, the president found common humanity and common decency. In all of those voices, in all of our listening, before we jump to other or to develop narratives and stories, let's rest in a sense of finding common decency and common humanity. Because in conclusion, the most important job in any country, in any republic, in any democracy, is not the president or the prime minister. The most important job is citizen. You, me, us. And the act that is the most important is not casting a ballot. The act that's most important is listening to our neighbor for the purpose of understanding, finding consensus, in building community in a way that your life is better, and more importantly, your children have a better life than you did. That's the job of our moment. Thank you.